Troubleshooting Syslog, SNMP, and NTP. Feels like a sales pitch. You get 3-for-1 management protocols in this nugget. Yeehaw! Anyway, 3 different management protocols that we use on almost every Cisco device in the world all the time. Network time protocol, simple network management protocol, and Syslog, right? NTP keeps the time synced on our devices. Let's start there. The quickest and easiest way to get NTP set up on your device is to set it for an NTP server. What I do for most of my customers, if they are having a public-facing device, is I'll go and I'll ping pool.ntp.org, one of the biggest, most open NTP sources in the world, and one of the most trusted and accurate, and I'll grab one of their IP addresses. Now, you don't have to do it this way. You can actually type in the host name, but the Cisco router is going to look up the name just like I just did. I just like doing it manually. So I'll go into the router and do NTP server, and you paste it in there, and you are done for just about every device. Now, you can go far beyond just NTP server. You can set up authentication for your NTP to where you only work with an authenticated server to make sure that you don't end up with a spoofed packet coming in goofing up your clock. You can set up NTP peers to where this one maybe gets its time from the server and then it goes its way back to all these different other devices that maybe get time from their server. So this is the one we just set up, and we can make it a peer of this one and this one and this one. A peer relationship is a lot less authoritative than a server, to where essentially, let's just say this guy's 100th of a millisecond off, and this guy's 100th of a millisecond off. It doesn't get down to that level, but if it did, they would kind of come towards each other slowly but surely until they both agree on a time at the middle ground, right? Right in between. So the peer relationships can be useful when that uplink server ends up getting disconnected or lost, because clock drift happens almost immediately on any Cisco device. So that's the core of NTP. SNMP. SNMP is a protocol you will quickly fall in love with because it allows you to see just about anything that's going on your Cisco device. It's because Cisco has assigned just about anything of value something called an object identifier, or OID, and that allows it to be monitored via SNMP. As a matter of fact, a whole combination of all the OIDs on a Cisco device in a big catalog is actually called an MIB, a management information base that you can load into an SNMP monitoring utility and generate a graph that looks something like that of your CPU utilization or your interface bandwidth or your whatever it is that you want to monitor on your device. I'm going to show you the quick and simple way of setting up SNMP. Go to any Cisco device and you can do a SNMP-server followed by the command community. Essentially, that's using SNMP version 1 or version 2C. Community string is the only level of security that you have on SNMP. So I could say I want the community to be ASDF. That'll be my read-only community, and by golly, I want to protect that using access list whatever, and I would type an access list number in there, right? But that is what enables your router to now support SNMP, so your SNMP management utility like PRTG or SolarWinds or MRTG if you're one of a brand new free one. Actually, PRTG is giving away 100 sensor versions now for free, which is pretty amazing. So go download that, check it out, set it up for a couple devices. So That's something that you can use to actually monitor what's going on your Cisco network all the time. Very, very handy. Now, there's a lot more to SNMP than just that. Same thing, I mean, we could go into a huge amount of depth. That's not my goal here. It's just to give you a flyby. But if you're curious on SNMP version 3, go to Google, type in SNMP v3 micro nugget. I think I spent probably 30 hours, some absurd amount of time, creating the most condensed, action-packed micro nugget on how to configure SNMP version 3 on your devices. So you want to check that out. Syslog. Syslog allows you to catch the log files or the events that occur on your Cisco devices. By default, every Cisco device out of the box displays syslog messages to the console port. Matter of fact, we'll show one right there. That's a syslog message, and we can catch those and actually centrally log them and keep them for our records, for security, for tracking of what's going on our devices, for I mean, there's a whole variety of reasons. Matter of fact, I was just working with a carrier earlier this week where something happened to a customer's connection of mine for a very significant amount of time. And I said, show me your log files. And they, sure enough, pulled up the log files of who had logged in their devices. They had logged every single command that was typed in. That's all done via Syslog. So by default, it logs to the console port. You can actually go in and type in logging buffered and do a memory log to where it will actually log to the local memory, which is good if you ever have something happen on the device and you can just do a show log and actually see these are the last few messages that have occurred on this device since the last reboot. But if you want these things to survive a reboot, we have to do a logging and then point it off to a device. We do that by just typing in the IP address of the Syslog server. So you can do logging, 1.2.3.4, and that will send the messages off to the Syslog server. You can use whatever software you want on that Syslog server to keep track of them. I used to always use Kiwi Syslog before it was taken over by SolarWinds, and now everything's ad filled and charged and all that. But beyond Kiwi Syslog, there's of course SolarWinds Syslog solutions. PRTG has a built-in Syslog utility. There is what's the big one? Splunk. Splunk Syslog server. They actually have a huge paid product, but give a significant free product away. So you might want to check all of those out for your central logging. Well, what could go wrong with these management protocols? Well, let's start off with NTP. The time server could be unreachable. Or maybe we've got a access control list that's blocking one of the port numbers that we need. NTP uses UDP port 123. SNMP uses UDP port 161 or 162, depending on what kind of SNMP. SNMP where you're actually watching, like PRTG, like this, checking sensors is 161. SNMP traps uses 162. And then Syslog uses UDP port 514. So if you have a firewall blocking any of those, that will obviously prevent your management protocols from working. Authentication mismatch. If you have NTP and you have authentication defined, obviously having the wrong key or requiring authentication when none is expected on the other side can cause NTP not to work. Missing service timestamps command. This is if you're looking at your logging. By default, a lot of the Cisco devices log based on uptime. So you actually will get a log message that says, hey, this event occurred at 5 days, 6 hours, 32 minutes. And you're going to be like, what's that mean? I mean, since that Cisco router's been running, it's been 5 days, 6 hours, 32 minutes. which is not useful to you most of the time. I don't know why Cisco uses that as their default timestamp. So you go into global config mode and type in service timestamp date time, which will then say this log message happened, as long as you've got NTP configured correctly, at August 3rd, 2015 at whatever time, right? Missing SNMP server IF index persist command. This one is a secret gem, because every single time your Cisco routers reboot or switches reboot, you run the risk of these index numbers moving around because different interfaces get created. So SNMP refers to interface index numbers, and if those change, all your sensors will go red. It'll be like, everything's down kind of thing. So you got to type this command in to make sure that it saves whatever interface index numbers it has, so the next time it reboots, it comes up with the same numbers. Last thing is the community string could be incorrect, because SNMP, you saw, relies on having that community string, so mistyping that could land you in a world of hurt. Well, there is the first edition of Troubleshooting Management Protocols. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.